So Kathy, I didn't print off your bio or anything, sorry.
That's okay.
So Kathy Kellenberger is going to be talking about SQL Server 2016 reporting services and how it's completely been updated, and she'll give you her background. She's one of our local MVPs, which there's very few across the world, and we're very fortunate that Kathy's in the St. Louis area. She's an MVP. We also have the Andrews, so we have two in our area, which is unusual, I think. But take it away, Kathy. This session is also going to be recorded, and we'll get that posted on our website. So if somebody from your office didn't make it, or other people, you can point into that.
Okay, let me know whenever you've got my screen showing up there.
Okay, your screen's showing, and can you hear in the back? Let's see.
Testing, testing.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Julie. So about 13 years ago, I found myself supporting a bunch of reports that were written in Microsoft Access, and they actually directly connected to some SQL Server databases, and it was a nightmare, as you can imagine. Just on a lark, I approached my manager about attending the SQL Pass conference. So this is 2003, and I was just shocked. I was working at a great place, but anyway, my manager said, yeah, this looks great. Why don't you go? So I went to the Pass conference in 2003. And at that conference, Microsoft was introducing reporting services for the first time. And I was floored. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to have this. This will solve my problems. If I remember correctly, they were promoting it as a feature to be to appear in the next version of SQL Server, and everybody was saying, we need this now, we need this now. Well, luckily, we did get it very quickly. It came out in 2004 as an add-on for SQL 2000. I'm sure that I had the beta version running back where I worked probably the week after the Pass Summit, because I was just so excited to get this solution in place. So obviously that's been 13 years ago, 12 years ago since it's been released, and there's been incremental changes over time. I really don't feel like Microsoft has shown it a lot of love over the past several versions of SQL Server. It seems like every version of SQL Server that comes out, there's some new big thing. Maybe it's always on availability groups. Maybe it's in-memory OLTP. Reporting services just kind of plods along, and we get some new charts, or we get subscriptions, or whatever it is, but there's not been any really gigantic big release. Well, it's finally here. This is where things change. SQL Server 2016 has some amazing new features, and I really think it's worth upgrading your reporting services just to get some of these features. So Microsoft had sent me, they asked me to do some 2016 sessions in Springfield, Illinois, and also in St. Louis, and they sent me about 500 slides. Well, luckily today, I've whittled that down to about 4 slides tonight, and we're going to be mostly demos. I just have a couple slides just to make sure I don't forget to tell you about something, and then if I don't show you something, you can, during the demo, you can remind me of it. So how many of you, I can't see hands, but you can nod your head, that'll be the same to me. How many of you get complaints that your users are using Chrome or Firefox or some other browser besides Internet Explorer, and it doesn't work really well with reporting services?
Okay, raise your hands. Yeah, I would say 3/4 of the room.
3/4 of the room. All right. How many of the room just love Silverlight? You guys just love Silverlight? I'm assuming nobody does.
Nobody raise their hand. Oh,
one person, okay.
we like it for Netflix.
Pardon me? For Netflix. Yeah, I don't know about Netflix. So, how many people have had complaints about printing their reports? I can't print the reports because I'm not using this old version of IE or whatever. One of the problems I had back when I was a DBA is we pushed all our software out using Microsoft one of the System Center products, and every time I did a patch on my reporting services, like a service pack, then it broke the printing plugin. You know, that was just a nightmare. So how many of you would like to, are tired of that? Well, I don't know, maybe some of you have your reporting services in SharePoint, but if you are using the report manager, how many of you are tired of looking at that interface? Anybody tired of looking at that same interface that we've had for years and years?
Yes, a lot of shaking heads.
A lot of shaking heads. Okay, so keep all those questions in mind, because guess what? We've solved these problems. Here's another thing, parameters. I know in the past I've had, let's say maybe I've had 3 parameters and I want 2 of them to be on the same line or whatever, and I just can't, you just pretty much are at the mercy of reporting services as far as parameter layout. That's got to be a problem. There's a couple new chart types. I'm not quite as excited about the chart types, but here's another interesting thing. I'm not going to cover it tonight, but reporting services has some integration with Power BI. Okay, I haven't really delved into that a whole lot, but what Microsoft has done is by default they've made the charts look more like Power BI, because what you can do, I'm not going to demonstrate it tonight, but you can pen things like charts and maps into Power BI and they don't look like, oh, that's a reporting services chart. It looks funny. So they've made everything by default look more modern and look like the Power BI. So I don't have the slide. I believe Sean showed it last month, where it's got the roadmap, and basically for on-premises, I didn't say prem, on-premises reports, reporting services is really going to be your go-to tool. And Power BI is out there as a cloud offering. However, there's going to be interactivity between those. Right now, you can actually host a Power BI report in Report Manager on premises. However, right now it's just a kind of a repository where you keep it. From what I understand, in the future, you'll actually be able to view the Power BI report from Report Manager. But guess what? It's not really called Report Manager anymore. It's called the web portal. So I'm not going to do really, except to just mention those Power BI things. I'm not really going to show anything about them. I've got enough just with regular reporting services, native reporting services, to show you. One of the things that's been an issue, it hasn't been an issue for me, is I guess there were some of the data sources that didn't work really well. So there's some new updated data sources for connecting to data outside of SQL Server. Report Builder, it's been around since 2005. It's got a modern report look and feel. Being an old person, I don't like that. I liked how it looked before. I liked how I'm not a fan of having the all black screens, black and white or just dark blue and white. I like colors so I can see better. But the Report Builder has that, I guess, the millennial look to it. Here's another thing. It doesn't specifically say it on here, but I know that I'm annoyed with the fact that they came out with, I really liked the old words, now I can't even think of it, the old tool that we used to use to build the reports, and it was like a 3-letter acronym. Now it's SSDT. And there were 2 SSDT products out there. One of them was for doing database projects, in other words, to control the source control of your database and maybe some other things. But there was also an SSDT BI that you had to download for your SSIS, SSRS analysis services. So guess what? Now there's one download. It's not so confusing. In fact, I was at a customer last year and I told them I needed SSDTBI, and they did not believe me, you know, for a while. And they said, no, I think you just need SSDT. And I said, no, I'm going to be doing reporting services and integration services. I need SSDTBI. So now there's one tool. So really those are the things I'm going to talk about and show you tonight, except there's one more thing I don't see listed here. Does anybody had your users complain, I want to see reports on my iPad. I want to see reports on my phone. Has anybody actually heard complaints about that? You have a show of hands where people said, I don't want to get my computer going to look at this data. So we also have something really, really exciting. We have mobile reports that will work on phones and like tablets. Okay, certain versions. So I was really annoyed. I have a Windows 8.1 phone, and the reason it's 8.1 is because Verizon has not pushed out the Windows 10 update. You need if you have a Windows phone, you need version 10. If you have an Android device, it's got to be 4.4 or higher. If you have an iDevice, I'm not sure exactly, but the last time I gave this session, somebody told me they were able to get it to work with iOS 9. I don't know anything about the iWorld. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to a virtual machine that I have running in Azure. And this particular guy, I have all the pieces for reporting services installed in native mode. I'm not going to be talking about SharePoint mode, okay? What's really crazy is those mobile reports. Right now, they're not supported in SharePoint mode. I'm assuming that's going to change in the future, but right now the mobile reports are only supported in native mode. Seems kind of crazy. But anyway, I'm just in, BIDS is what I was trying to remember before. I always love the acronym BIDS. I'm in Visual Studio 2015, and I have a report project open. Almost everything that you've come to know about reporting services is the same. It's not like you're going to have to stop everything and forget everything. You're just going to have to add some new things to it. One thing I'd like to show you, and let me just add a report, and maybe somebody else can tell me if I'm crazy or not. Oh yeah, I bet that's a leading question probably. Okay, I'm just going to create a quick report. Yeah, I shouldn't ask if people think I'm crazy or not. Okay, so if I add a data source, and I'm just going to link to the shared one. And this is something I just discovered over the weekend. And maybe I'm crazy, maybe it was there before, but I don't think so. And then if I go, and there is a shared data set. I did a really bad thing here and didn't name it.
Yeah, I think so.
But if I add a data set, maybe I'm crazy, but I am actually able to see a data set that was published to my report server. I don't think I could ever do that before. Am I nuts? And I did not see this in a list of features. I just discovered it over the weekend when I was getting ready for tonight, that I could see this shared data set. I have some other ones out there. This particular one I published from SSDT, and I can see it here. Does anybody else ever see that before?
Nope.
No comment.
Yeah, and so I just spent 5 months writing a book on reporting services 2016, and I did not see that the whole time, but I'm seeing it. I saw it Saturday. I don't know if there was an update pushed out or what. I am using the latest and greatest version of this. There was a recent update of SSDT, I believe last week, so maybe it came out last week. But anyway, if I create a report, one thing that's going to be different is the default fonts. So if you actually compare the default fonts from a report in an an earlier version and the reports in the newer versions, the fonts do look different. So if you just look at it, I don't really see a lot of difference. But if I would compare an old report to a new report, I'd be able to see it. So this VM is too slow. So I don't know. That, to me, that's like inconsequential. It really is. It will ever show up here. But if you take a look at the charts, I'm going to get rid of that. If you take a look at the charts, and in fact, I'm going to pull up a different query. There's some queries. Let me grab this one. Here's a nice one. I am not going to follow best practices of naming things like I normally would in a real life. I'm just going to go fast, if that's okay with everybody. Okay, so I have a nice data set here. I am going to just show you that these charts look very different. And they in some cases, there are features turned off that used to be turned on by default, some things like that. So that, if you remember what an original chart would look like, it looked very different than this. For example, the fonts were different, like the chart title would be here, and it would be a darker font, things like that. So it looks very different. The way I put the chart together is the same. That hasn't changed. So let me just do something really nice there. The way I work with it is the same. I right-click on things and go to properties, you know, that type of thing. That all looks the same. By default, like notice, I don't have a axis label here. I guess that's what you would call it. By default, that's turned off. I can turn it on, but by default, it's turned off. So if I preview this report, it will look very different than a report that I would have created with an older version. And the reason, as I mentioned, is that this is going to look more like the reports or like the charts that you'll see in Power BI. So if I decide, and I don't even know how to pin it to a Power BI, you know, I'm going to save that for later in the year. But if I want to pin this to a Power BI dashboard, it's not going to look out of place. It's not going to stand out and say, oh, that came from an old reporting services. No, it will fit in. Okay, let me show you another really cool thing. You may have noticed this area up here with these boxes. You know, what in the world are they? There's my year parameter. That's interesting. So if I pull up in my report data, and I'm just going to create a bunch of parameters. If I play with, I've noticed that if I play with this too much, I break the report and have to close and go out. Let's just give this one name. Let's just call it start date. And let's do another one. Again, I'm being messy. I would give them a real name in real life. So previously, I believe what would happen is I would have my first parameter would be on one line, and I would have two parameters there, and then my next one would be on the next line. And it would be really annoying because I said, well, I would really like these two together, but maybe there was something where there was a cascading parameter or something like that where I had to have this one first. So what I can do with 2016 is I can grab these and I can drag them where I would like to see them. If I don't have enough lines, I can right-click and I can add another row or add another column, you know, whatever I'd like to do. Preview this. I'll just say 2011. These parameters are not going to make any difference, but notice they stayed where I put them. They didn't move around. So I think this is a feature that a lot of people have been asking for a long time. And really, in general, with SQL Server 2016, I'm seeing a lot of things. You know, I'm an MVP, so I hear, when I have time, what the MVPs are talking about. And a lot of the things that they've been complaining about for a long time are showing up in 2016. You know, for example, when you do the install, you have a chance to configure tempdb with multiple files at the install. Things like that, that, you know, people have been complaining about for a long time. So I really feel like with this release, Microsoft is really listening to what people have been saying. So I think that's a great feature, being able to control the layout parameters. I've got two other reports here that show the new types of charts, and I didn't want to spend time going through how to create them completely, but I do have some links in the slides where you can go out and learn more on how to do this. I mean, for the most part, this one's called a heat map. For the most part, you set it up pretty close to the same. What it looks like when you're done is something like this. And I've set it up. You don't get the tooltips by default. I went ahead and set those up. But this is a heat map where I've got, like, for example, the Southwest Territory had the biggest sales. Eventually I'm down to where Northeast had the least, and in fact the rectangle is too small to actually show any values. I have to mouse over and see it. So that's one of the new chart types. It's called a heat map. The other new chart type has been, I've spent more time on this guy, wasted more time on this guy trying to figure out how to make it look like the examples that I saw. I finally figured it out. It has to do with the data that you provide. So I'm not sure. I'd love to hear from somebody like Jen Sterrup, you know, or some of the really the people that are really knowledgeable in the BI world, because I know they hate pie charts. So I'm not really sure how this is better than a pie chart. It's almost like multiple pie charts stacked up. But the idea here is that you can represent a hierarchy. Let me just take a look at the data. In the links at the end, I have a link to the article. I got this example from someone who had a blog post. And what this guy did is he took the DIM employee table from the AdventureWorks DW database, and I think what he did is kind of denormalized it so that you, well, let me do this. Let me grab, actually I don't have to do that. I can just go to Query Designer and run it here. What he did was kind of denormalize it. So let's say you're a manager and there's one level below you. You've got, you run this and you'll see what I'm talking about. You can see these nulls. He's got it kind of twisted, almost like a pivot. I'm not sure exactly what he did here. So here, this guy doesn't have anyone under him, I guess, and then this guy, this one's got several layers. You've got these nulls. So anyway, I am going to cancel. So the query has to be just right to get the effect I'm going to show you. Wait just a minute, because I kept playing with it, and I just could get concentric circles, and I'm like, what am I doing wrong here? And finally I found this example that was out there, and so if I mouse over, Ken Sanchez, I think, is the CEO of AdventureWorks. So at top level, Ken Sanchez is always the manager. So this, I'll show you one thing. So notice this is this big blue area. I guess it's Peter Krebs. Let's see. Peter Krebs. So lots of people work for Peter Krebs. I'll show you in a minute why it's colored different at this second level. You can specify, kind of specify. I'll show you what it means. But anyway, each level has the number of employees, I believe. until you finally get down here. I can't even get any tooltip to come out. So this is, I guess, an uneven or a ragged hierarchy. But if I go back to the design, notice that I'm just counting up. I don't know if I was supposed to sum the employee count. That's probably right. And then I have, for categories, I have all these different levels. And then to get the, if I didn't have the series group, it would all be the same color. But the fact that I have it at level 2, the coloring, then it starts showing up different colors based on level 2. Everybody works for the CEO. Let me just change something just to experiment. Let's go with level 3 and see how it changes. I haven't tried this. We'll see what happens. La 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 la. So yeah, that's pretty crazy looking. And so right now I've got the level 3 managers. So it looked much better when I just have it at the level 2. This is craziness. So the guy that came up with this example, he was right to do it at level 2, because this is just some insanity. The other thing, and I haven't really tried it to make sure it worked, but if you go in the properties of the project, you can choose which version you would like to work with. And I haven't tried pushing anything out. I know that, like, if I do 2008, if I choose 2008, it lets me have a chart like this, but when I try to preview it, I believe it'll show me an error. It's just showing me, yeah. So what it looks to me like, you set it to an earlier version, it's going to let you develop the report. It's just when you preview it, it's going to say, you know, sorry, this is not compatible. So for example, if you were trying to use this tool and do 2008 R2 reports, and you were trying to use the parameters, you know, trying to modify your positions of your parameters, you would get an error. So let me change that back to 2016. But overall, it's mostly the same thing inside SSDT that we've seen before, you know, except for a couple new, you know, the parameters, a couple new chart types, and just kind of the default look and feel of reports. So I probably should stop there and see if there's any questions at this point.
No questions. No
questions. Okay. All right. So now it's time to look at our new. Oh, let me go to this browser, Mozilla Firefox. This is the new web portal. That's what it's called. And I'm actually using Firefox right now to look at it. Not a browser that I normally use, but I just decided to install it just to see how things work. You'll notice that it looks kind of different. Really, really does look different. And the old-fashioned reports are now called paginated reports. So right here, I have some folders. Here's something I didn't even mention to you, these KPIs, these standalone KPIs, and then we also have mobile reports. So like if I click on this folder, there is a section for paginated reports. So if I had moved this guy, can I move it easy enough? Let me move this guy out to the top, move here. I just want to go there, home. Come on. And I'm going to go back home. Okay, so you can see there's a section for paginated reports, a section for mobile reports, a section for KPIs, and then folders. Okay. There's also So let's say you are a busy executive and there's, 3 dozen reports that you care about or that you have rights to. What if there's 3 or 4 that you want to look at every day? What you can do is you can click Add to Favorites, and you can see those reports on this Favorites page. So every person, it's not like the My Reports. I think the old My Reports was where you could create your own reports. These are published reports, but you would like to see them on this Favorites tab because you just want to see a certain set of reports easily. Okay? So if you switch to the browse, then everything that I can see is available. All right, so this is how it looks so far. A couple of things that are different. If you use Report Builder, Report Builder used to be the click once and install. You can download Report Builder here, but it's not tied to reporting services. I could download it and install it and have a shortcut down here if I would like, but it's not that click once and install. Another thing that was a problem back where I used to work, where we pushed all the software out. Okay, so that's disconnected now. All right, let me show you something really cool. I've got an example. I'm going to switch back to, okay, I'm on reporting. See if I can, I've tried this once. Let me go to settings. So let's say that, yeah, this is a cool new web portal, but we would really like to brand it for our company. We want it to look like our intranet. Okay, so if I go to site settings, and what I've got is I have downloaded an example from Microsoft that they did. I did not really have time to put it together. It's basically 3 or 4 text files. If you have somebody that does CSS, I believe it's kind of CSS and JSON-y. But anyway, I am going to upload my brand, and so I just downloaded it from Microsoft, and this is a zip file with 3 or 4 text files that define this. And so I uploaded it, and now I have the Xbox branded. So if I go back to browse, I have the Xbox branded reporting services web portal. Okay, the reason this is Xbox is because that's what the reporting services team put out there as a sample. Obviously, you could do whatever you want. It's basically you define the colors and you have a logo, you put it together in a prescribed way and zip it up. It's real easy to do. So I don't believe that you can let individual people have their own branding. This is going to be a server-wide setting. Okay. Let's see what else. All right. Let's take a look at these KPIs. So the KPIs will, oh, before I do that, let me tell you to do one thing. Everybody in the room that has a Windows phone or a Windows 10 or a relatively new or relatively recent last couple versions of an iPhone or a 4.4 Android or higher, any of those devices, go to your app store, wherever that may be, and try to install Power BI. There is a Power BI app. I do know if you have a Windows 8.1 phone, it's not going to work, but Windows 10 phone, Android 4.4 or higher, something, not sure. I heard, but the last place I was at, the person said iOS 9 worked and up. So do that. I'll bring this back up in a little bit, but what I want to do is have you be able to see on your own device, if you have one there, my mobile reports and KPIs. So the first thing is these KPIs. I can click them to see them better. And that's a new feature, and they're actually pretty easy. I'm going to get rid of this X box. This X box is driving me crazy. It's a little too green for me. Remove. Yes, let's remove it and go back to the original. Okay, that's much better. All right, so KPIs, how do I create those? I just go to New, KPI, and I can choose what kind of visualization I would like. Notice that there's already some numbers filled in here. What's up with that? So the idea behind some of the new tools that you can use with reporting services is that you see the design first, and then you can set the values, you can set the data. What you have to do is you have to have a published data set. You have to have a shared data set. So in this case, what I could do right now is I could just create this and it would show up on my reporting services. Or, I mean, if I wanted, I could come in here and I could change the numbers. I could have a hard-coded value if I would like. What I'm probably going to do is connect it to a data set. So I go out and go to my data sets, and I'm going to go to 2014 sales. And then what I do is I just kind of set, for the KPI, you have a goal, you can have a trend, you can have a goal and a value, and you can have a trend as well. My SQL Server is behaving very slowly on this VM. I apologize for that. I may just have to give up if it doesn't give me some data quickly. It seems to work much faster when all of you are not watching over my shoulder. Oh, there we go. So what I do is I find an aggregation. So I would like sum, and I would like it to be sales, and say okay. So that was my value, and I hope it works better this time. Maybe I should just leave it at manual, but I could go out and pick that data set or another data set. I'm just going to go blah, 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 blah. And then I can have a status that can also come from that data set or another data set, and I can also have a trend. So what I could do is I could have the sales, let me see if I can get that to come up, like this monthly sales. If it doesn't work faster, well, there we go, order month. It's actually working better this time. Okay, and then I can pick, you know, like I said, my visualization, and I can give it a name. Let's call it St. Louis. And I can also link to a mobile report or to a custom URL. And a custom URL would be, for example, another reporting services report, or go ahead and link to that guy, or to, you know, anything I would like. Okay, so there's my KPI. If I click on it, then I can see there's related content, and I could click on that if I would like. Okay, so has anybody gotten Power BI installed on their handheld device, Julie?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so if you go into that, oh shoot, I don't even have mine turned on. I could probably talk you through it better. You can use that Power BI to look at some sample data, but you can also set up a new account. This is the information you need for the new account. So I gotta try to get mine turned on to get to that. I think you probably go to settings or something, and it may be different on different platforms. I'll just leave that up there until Julie tells me that somebody actually got it to work. I don't have SSL configured, but obviously if you were doing this in a enterprise for a company, you would want to have SSL, you know, make this secure.
We have somebody, we have a winner.
Yay! Okay. So, so you saw the KPI. Maybe I can make this, I'll just make sure we can keep that visible while we're looking at, whoops, looking at I did not want that thing to show up. Okay. Okay. I need to get this guy out of the way. Here we go. All right. So this particular mobile report, for some reason, it takes a while to show up. Let's see. Let me go back to here. Are we going to maximize? Let me show that again. I'm having fun. I've got this Zoom window in my way. But anyway, I've got that up. I'm hoping everybody has that. I'm going to try not to keep worrying about it. But I wanted to show you the mobile report, and I had it already running because it seemed like it took a while to show up on this VM. One of the cool things is that you can have filters. So this is the simplest filter. I can switch back and forth between filters. I don't know if you saw that happen really quickly. The data changed as I picked a different filter. I can click on any of the controls. I think not working. Let's see if I can get this to maximize. Okay, come on. There we go. Oh, here's one that's working. So I clicked on a state and it showed me the sales. This one should have, maybe that one doesn't do it. I can click on, there we go. Click on one of the columns and it gives me the information. So other really interesting thing about this is that I can make my browser different sizes, and notice how the report doesn't hide anything, it just adjusts itself. Okay, so it just changes based on how much room I give it. So that's kind of an interesting thing. What I'm going to do is just kind of walk you through really quickly creating, and I wish this guy would get out of my way. I don't know if you can see it, but I've got the dock to top. Okay, maybe that. There we go. What I'm going to do is kind of walk you through kind of how it works to create the mobile report. And again, there is so the mobile report, you do have a new piece that you have to install called Power BI Mobile. It's a free tool you can download and play with, but to publish reports, you got to have reporting services. So if I go out and choose mobile report and say yes, this just tells me if I don't have it, I've got to go out and get it. I do have it. And very much like the KPIs, it gives you sample data to work with. So you can do the design of your report, and then after you're happy with the design, you can go back and connect it to published data sets. Okay? And there it is. So if any of you have used DataZen, this is Microsoft bought DataZen, and this is now, it looks very much like the DataZen designer, but this is now SQL Server Mobile Report Publisher. Okay, it's really easy to use. You just drag the items out, size them however you want. probably don't want to do that. You probably want to make this, figure out how you want it to look. I am having some issues where some of these, it might be a bug in these early versions. Sometimes it shows up with, when I'm in design view, shows up with the data. Sometimes it does this little thing. So basically, you build your report the way you want it to look. For each control, you set the properties. So for example, I don't know, you set a name, for example, goal, or like, and set whatever properties you want to set. Then you switch over to the data tab, and you can connect, you can add data. So in this case, I have some, it looks like spreadsheet data, it's simulated data. And if I click out here, I can go out and I can either import Excel data that is not going to be refreshed automatically. You'll have to re-import it if you go that route. I recommend connecting to report server. These are actually the same one, just different name there. And connect to a published data set. So now I have my sales data set plus these other ones. So what I would do is I would go out and connect the properties to my new data set, and what's the main value, it's sales, my options is for, do I want to show an aggregation? I can also connect them to the filter. My mousey just died, oh no. Okay, and so it's really not that difficult to do. One of the cool things about this is that you start with what's called a master report. Then, once you have the master report done, you can define a tablet report and a phone report. So if I switch over to the tablet report, the only elements I have available to me are those that I had already configured for the master report. So then once I do that, I can choose some or all of them. Having fun using my touchpad now that my mouse decided to die. So I could have a, this report only have a couple of the controls if I wanted, whatever I would like to do. Okay, so that could be, which one is that? That one is my tablet, then I could make a phone one. Maybe I only want to have, that control on it. All right, then I can preview the report. So this is what it looks like on a mobile phone. So probably for this one, I'd probably use a KPI or something instead, maybe. If I switch to the tablet report, I can see what it will look like on a tablet. It's still looking like a, not looking like what I expected. I expected to see both of these things. And then to publish it, I click the Save button. And I can either save the definition locally, or I can save it, and I believe this one just got published because nothing came up asking me. Since I started from new report, it automatically assumed when I saved it, I wanted to save it out here. I'm going to refresh this and see if it shows up. But what I could, here's my new report I just created. So what I can do is I can launch it from down here. I don't have to launch it from the web portal. And I can save the definition. I don't have to just publish it right away. What else did I not show you? I didn't show you printing. Nope, because I moved that report. So if I go out to this report, previously to print, there was a print icon. It was a ActiveX control, I believe, something really, really old. So now, how do we print for lots of different browsers? You know, how do we print for a modern browser? And this is all HTML5. So hopefully someone doesn't come up next year and say, HTML5 is dead. Let's go with HTML6. I don't know what will happen. But anyway, if I print, what it does is it creates a PDF. Now, previously you could create a PDF, but the nice thing about this is it lets you choose the size of paper and the orientation. So it's better than just the old save as a PDF and then print the PDF, because maybe it wasn't, you know, the right orientation or whatever. So you can choose that. So that's the new printing feature. Another feature is you can export to PowerPoint if that's a good idea for you. What it does, it doesn't, they're not live from what I understand. I believe it just is pictures, graphics. I just have PowerPoint Viewer. Maybe if I haven't tried it with anything besides PowerPoint Viewer, so maybe I'm wrong there, but I don't believe it keeps a connection. So here's one page and here's the other page. So that could help. I don't know. I do lots of screenshots myself, so that for me, I probably wouldn't care that it did that unless it was live. What else? Oh, there's also a new way to, let me bring up my sales report again. And I really don't want that guy. I'm going to copy the URL. I'm going to paste it, and then I'm going to add a question mark rs:\embed equals true. So this is a new way to embed reports in any kind of web application. So by adding this rs:\embed equal true, I've gotten rid of the web portal part. I still have all the things that I need for my report, for example, the parameters and printing and that type of thing, but I don't have the web portal. Okay. So you could use that, you know, inside a web app or, you know, whatever you would like to do. Is there anything else I forgot? I want to try something just to look and see. I thought I heard something about try making this one. I'm not sure if that thing about making the report resize was only the mobile reports, not the other reports. So I hadn't tried it, but the mobile reports will readjust size as the browser changes. So I think I've shown pretty much everything except for the new ways it integrates with Power BI, and I'm not really prepared to do that at this point. So any questions about what I've talked about?
I have a question really quick. Can you hear?
I think I can hear now. I couldn't at first.
Are there any different deployment options in 2016 for Ssrs? And I might be just a little bit behind, but kind of like you have your project deployment module in 2012 for SSIS.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen any type of project deployments for SSRS. Am I just behind on the game on that one, or?
That's an interesting question. So the question for the recording is, SSIS has a project deployment model. Is there anything new with reporting services as far as deployment? There really isn't anything new, and as far as reporting services, you can always deploy a project, or you can deploy individual pieces, individual objects like reports or data sources. So that's all stayed the same as far as I can tell. It's really interesting that you brought up SSIS, because I guess a lot of people complained about that project deployment model, and I can understand that. So with SSIS, with the new model, in order to use the catalog, which there's a lot of great benefits for using the catalog, you had to publish your entire project. Even if you had to change for one report, you have to publish the whole thing. Not one report, but one package. You had to publish all of your packages. I haven't really played with it yet, but because I've been spending my whole life with reporting services the last few years. But with SSIS, you now have the option of going back, even with the catalog, of publishing just one package. So Microsoft has kind of gone back, a step back to the old way. And I can understand that. Let's say you had a project, you needed to push out one package and you had another package with some changes, but they weren't ready yet. You know, hopefully with source control, maybe you have the master project with everything pristine that you could push out. But anyway, I don't really see anything different about the deployment. Probably the biggest differences are probably the installation pieces, because now to get the design tools, you go out and download at just SSDT. And let me bring up my slides again. Did I close them? I don't see, oh, let me go out of my VM. You know, so it's simpler. I would say installing the tools are simpler, but more complex at the same time. Because if I want to install everything now, I have to install SQL Server with reporting services in native mode. That's the same as it's always been. But then I also have to install SSDT. I have to go out, and that's been a separate install for a while. But now Management Studio is also a separate install. The reason for that is because they want to push updates out monthly. I'm not a big fan of that because now I teach a lot of beginner people, and it's getting really complicated for me to help them get their computers or the laptops set up to learn SQL Server now. Report Builder, you have to go out and download it and install it. The Report Publisher, you got to go out and download it and install it. So I would say deployment, I don't really see changes, but installation, I'm going out and having to grab all those pieces. And I kind of find that annoying, actually, that I can't get everything in one place. What I've got, any other questions, Julie?
Yeah.
Kathy, have you had a chance to look at the report builder functionality? Any improvements as far as ad hoc reporting?
So the question is, any improvements in the report builder functionality? It's not a tool that I use a whole lot, but I did not really see any difference. Let's see, let me go back to the browse page. If I go to new, they're calling it paginated report, so that's how I launch it. So this is not a tool that I use a whole lot. I would rather be in Visual Studio working, but I think the only thing they changed was just the look and feel of it. It's kind of like one color instead of multiple colors. I didn't really see any differences, so I can either create a blank report. I think the wizards that they had are the same. It's just, you know, it just looks different with this black color. You know, I would rather have things more colorful just because it's easier for me to see. I believe everything is pretty much the same. I'll try adding a chart. Can I even add the new chart types? And I have not gone out since the release. Yeah, so we have the new chart types. Let me add this guy and see how it looks. So they've got, basically, it looks like they've updated as far as the look and feel, the new chart types, but I don't believe there's any better functionality. I haven't heard of anything.
Any more questions?
How easy is it to migrate old reports into the new environment and give it the updated look and feel?
Oh, updated look and feel of the reports, or the updated look and feel of the tools?
Things like the graphs, giving them a modern look. And
Yeah, so for the recording, the question is, how hard is it to migrate to the look and feel? I'm going to say painful. Because I'm going to say painful because theoretically the look of the reports, you could in the old version, you could make it look, if you knew what you were doing and spent the time, you could make those charts look like the new modern chart, because it's basically changing the colors, changing the fonts, changing things. So if you have an old report and you upgrade it, it's not going to upgrade those fonts, or those colors. So if you really wanted to go with the modern look, you would have to go and change, you'd have to change all those properties. So yeah, it's not going to do that for you. That would be really cool if there was a tool out there that did it. So anybody wants to start a new company to change these reports, because so think of it. So imagine that you had a report and you had a certain set of fonts and you wanted it that way. You wanted those fonts, and then when you upgraded, all the fonts changed. You would probably be angry. Plus, I don't think that they went to that trouble. So it's just on the new reports that you're going to see the new look and feel.
Just use destination format, right?
Yeah. Other questions?
How hard is it to upgrade a SQL server from, let's say, if you're on SQL 2012 or 2014 to upgrade SSRS to 2016?
How hard is it to upgrade? I would think it will not be difficult. I think if you have like a 2012 or 2014, you could probably migrate your reports over. However, they would still probably be in the old mode. I think and that's not anything I've done recently at all for anybody on any project. So I haven't done it. I think that if you migrate reports over, they're going to work fine in a newer version. So let's say you got a new VM, you spun up a new VM for your 2016 and you just migrated the old reports over. I think they'll migrate fine, but I believe if you pulled them into Visual Studio, they would upgrade. And maybe somebody in the room has some experience on upgrading the reports, because I really haven't worked on a project like that. If I have, it was probably, really I haven't, because when I was at Bryan Cave, I had everything running on 2005, and we were just starting on 2008 when I left. And since then, I have developed reports, and I have helped some people with SharePoint and reports, but I have not really gone through a migration. So I probably don't, maybe somebody else in the room has.
If not, I think she'll give you a special rate to work on that project.
Yeah, I'd love to work on the project. So maybe what I can do, Julie, is I can see what I can find out, and maybe send the answer to you. I know with SSIS, you've got to pull all the packages in to Visual Studio to upgrade them. SSRS is not that different going forward. You know what I mean? Because it seems like, I guess, to get the new parameters and the new chart types would be the only big difference in the report definition. So I'll put that as a question to do some research on and get it back, and maybe Julie can pass the answer along.
So on your handout at the very top, it says Yahoo groups for questions. So join the Yahoo group, and Kathy, you could just post it then to the Yahoo group.
Okay.
And that's moderated by Kathy and Dan and some of the other people. So if you ever run into questions, they look at it, you know, it might not be right away, but, you know, sometimes you get pretty quick answers.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of neat.
Right.
And that's part of the youth group here is you get to know people, and you know, I might send an email to someone instead of posting because I feel like I'm going to feel stupid, you know. Then I ask somebody and they're like, wow, I have no idea, so then I go and post it.
Yeah.
You know, once I find out that it's not a silly question.
So on this last slide, I get a bunch of resources, and I'll make sure that Julie gets this. And the first one is TechNet Virtual Labs. It's a really, really great resource, and basically there's a bunch of labs. Some of them are about SQL Server, some of them are about SQL Server 2016, and I know for a fact that there's one out there on the mobile reports if you want to play with that. So the benefit of using TechNet Virtual Labs is that you go out and you say, I want to run this lab, and there's a tutorial you can follow. It spins up a virtual machine that you can have for 2 hours, basically. I believe 2 hours or an hour and a half, something like that. Plenty of time for you to go in the lab and play. And I highly recommend that you do that. So the benefit is you don't have to download 2016 and get it set up or get a VM spun up. You can go out and play with it. You can even play with things that aren't new with 2016, things like availability groups. So it's a fantastic resource. Highly recommend it. The second link is how to create a custom brand package for reporting services. That's where I got that Xbox branding. So it tells you, you know, what you need to do to create custom branding for your native site. Then third link is that sunburst graph that I showed you the example. This is where I got that example. There's other examples out there, but this is the only one I found that showed that ragged hierarchy. So that really like that particular one. And then the link at the bottom could probably change from time to time, but that's the current link for downloading SSDT. I recommend whenever you need it, just do a search for SSDT download, because I have a feeling this link will change probably on a quarterly, if not more frequent basis. So that's all I have, Julie.
That's great. Thank you so much, Kathy, for your time, and thanks for reporting.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So if you want to fill out your evaluation, and we'll have Dave come up and he'll talk about pure storage.